Welcome back to another episode of Sex, Drugs, and Soul. Today I have the shadow work queen on, Danielle Massey. I'm so excited to have you on. Took a deep dive into your book and pretty much became my companion. Dog-eared some things, underlined some things. I just wanted to read it before we had this time to drop in together. So I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking the time to read the book.
Yeah, I really wanted to. I feel like not every podcaster does. But speaking from personal experience, I haven't read every book that I've, from guests I've had on, and I know that the reverse is true in my situation. But I would just love to dive into shadow work. The shadow totally um, just attracts me or anything in that deep and mystery parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
I'd love to start off with just even a little brief definition of what is shadow work, or if someone's never heard of the term before, just dipping their toe into it, how do you define it?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been talking about shadow work now for close to a decade. And when I first started, nobody knew what it was, even though it's been around for a very long time. But because of TikTok, that's changed immensely in the past 3 years or so, where all of a sudden I'm giving a keynote and I ask who's ever heard of it before, and most people's hands go up, which is wild.
Oh, wow.
So, but here's where it gets interesting. The definition of what it is really doesn't vary all that much if we're sticking true to what it starts as, but the definition that people give me of what it is varies really widely. So we'll set the record straight a little bit. Shadow work was coined by Carl Jung, who was a famous Swiss psychiatrist back in the 19th century, late 1800s. And when he began doing this work, he was a student of Sigmund Freud, who everybody knows. What he found, and like most men at that time who were doing this kind of work, they were really just trying out things. There was no real research. They just wanted to have these amazing ideas that were put out there. But he did stumble across something wonderful, which is this concept that we tend to repress our memories. We bury things away from ourselves. And the way that he would see that come out is through getting people into a meditative state and asking them very pointed questions, and a lot would stumble through. And after the sessions, they'd be like, I don't even know where this stuff is coming from. And that is shadow work. Shadow work is the process of going into these moments that we are burying within ourselves to pull them up to the surface slowly and intentionally in an effort to heal and integrate. And it sounds simple. I think in a lot of ways it is really simple, but I think the internet and TikTok and other places can make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Oh, good to hear. um, I'm curious. Is it the repressed memories, or those parts of ourselves too? Because I know for a long time, I've shunned and I wrote about it a little bit about the places or pieces of me that I hid from, or I didn't want to fully accept or showcase to the world, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, one is the other. So the way that our brains work, and for those of you guys who don't know me, my background's in cognitive neuroscience, and I was a licensed psychotherapist for a long time. So the background with the brain is fascinating, where our memories are the core building blocks of who we believe we are and who we tell ourselves that we're not. So the way in which we store memories is based on four pieces, which I do talk about in the book. It's our sensory experience, it is our chemical reaction, which is our emotions. It's the physical response, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or staying in that rest and digest space. And it's the thoughts that we have that co occur. And when we talk about those aspects of self that we're hiding, those are built from our memories.
Wow. Okay. Ding.
It's all connected.
Yeah. But I love that explanation and breakdown of how the memory processes and captures that moment, and then, affects us in, this life. And then I know, because I'm privy to your book, but I know you've also talked about the past life experiences.
Hmm.
And but before I dive in there, because that's definitely a question on my list, I wanted to open up and share your journey of how you, the specific moment or awakening during your cancer journey, that cracked you open to it? Because I think that that
Yeah.
was so vulnerable and open, and relatable too.
Thank you. I'm going to go even deeper a little bit than that because
Okay.
there's aspects I couldn't even fit into the book after all the editing
Oh,
that went into it. But
beautiful. Beyond the
something,
pages.
yeah, beyond the pages, something who haven't read the book before, something to know about me is that I come from a family of spiritual healers. My grandmother was a spiritual healer in the Bronx, and people would come from all over the country. They would go into her space, which was in the basement. I lived with her when I was little, and I watched people come in with incurable diseases and come out fine. They'd be diagnosed with lupus or different types of advanced cancers, and then they'd be better. And I didn't understand it as a kid, but I knew that it scared everyone in my family. That all of my family members, her sons, my uncle and my father, and their wives, my cousins, everybody was afraid of grandma except for me. I was like, what is she doing down there? Like, I
Yeah.
want to get into this. I want to know what's going down. But over time, my family worked really hard to keep us separate as much as they could. So the
Mm.
message that I got at home all the time was facts are facts, science is science. Stick to the science and you'll be fine, which is how I ended up pursuing cognitive neuroscience and go to school for therapy. I wanted to understand what makes people tick and how our brains work. And it just became such a fascination for me. I became a professor at Penn State University. I wanted to share the knowledge with other people. I wanted to challenge the next great thinkers of the world. And then I was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And when I went through it, I had all the tools. I knew exactly what you're supposed to do in that scenario. I had a therapist myself. We broke everything down. I spoke to my own doctors. We talked about all the options that were out there, but nothing was working. And I felt horrible, like the lowest low I could have ever imagined for myself. And I couldn't find my way out of it. It didn't, no matter what I tried. And I remembered as I was kind of like sifting through all this stuff that I used to teach about shadow work. It was something that I talked about all the time with my students, but I didn't do anything with it. I learned about it. I knew the history. I knew the science. I knew everything about Carl Jung. I can give you that guy's full bio and all the projects he's ever done, but I'd never done shadow work. So I found a woman in the UK named Allison who I dedicated the book to. And she was a licensed therapist too. And I kind of went on this spiritual, holistic journey herself, moved away from traditional therapy, and she did my first session with me. And I worked with her for a very long time after that. She taught me everything about shadow work and how to use it with people.
That's so beautiful. I love so did she walk you through the first past life or like talk going into that realm as
She
well?
did, yeah. And for anybody who hasn't read the book, the first time I ever did shadow work in the traditional sense, it ended up being a past life regression. And that was not on purpose. It's just that's where we went.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I had one recently done with a therapist slash spiritual guide, and I didn't even realize like what I had held on to and brought into this lifetime.
That's it. That's the whole point of shadow work. We have no idea it's there. And that's the beauty. Once we can uncover it, we can integrate it, we can heal from it, and it changes our entire point of view.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, this is where this sense of urgency came from. Like because I wasn't able to complete like a mission or get the message to someone in a previous life. It was really like pulling so much so that I was like, okay, I've got to study some quantum healing hypnosis or something.
Yeah, it's like all the
Uh,
pieces of the puzzle make sense for people after doing shadow work sessions.
yeah. So I know that, shadow work. So there's that element. And you've touched on meditation before in the book. Is that like the first key step that you would recommend to listeners to do, or how
I
would
think
you?
starting in a softer way usually is a better entry for people because this can be a scary
Yeah.
topic. Like going into the hardest things your soul has ever faced.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to sign up for that right away. Sometimes we want to dip our toes in the water before we do a cannonball. So shadow work journaling is a nice, easy segue in my opinion, to just start touching on some of these things, to start finding where the path leads us. And then we can make that decision of when we're ready to go deeper.
I like that descriptor of cannonball. It's like I get a little brief image of me like running into pole jumping, and I was like, because I'm like I'm like that's been my jam. Are there any like common myths or misconceptions about shadow work that you'd love to like kind of dispel or?
Oh, totally. I think when you hear the phrase shadow work, it sounds very ominous and sort of off-putting. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, everybody thinks I'm, like, walking around my house, like, in all like, I'm wearing black today, but that's because I just got my hair dyed, so I'm trying not to dye
looks
my
great.
clothing. Thank you. But, like, normally, I'm in white, and, like, everything's light and airy, and it can be really beautiful, and I think just like a cannonball's gonna be a lot of fun, but it sounds scary.
Mhm,
So, I know that a lot of different practitioners are trying to move away from the term or the phrase shadow work and call it
mm,
something else. Like, for instance, if anybody's in therapy, your therapist probably knows all about internal family systems,
mm,
which is the
mhm,
sect IFS of therapy. And there's a specific branch of IFS that does shadow work called parts work.
mm,
And they
mm.
call it parts work because that sounds a lot less scary than shadow work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, that's what she was doing then too."
Yeah, parts
Good.
work is shadow work with your eyes open. You're still
Uh,
achieving that same meditative state, but what the therapist is looking for is your eye movement. That
mm,
way we know that neural pathways are breaking down instead
mm,
of like it's just a visual indicator. I'm comfortable enough having people close their eyes. I know that they're getting what needs to be done, but for a therapist, it has to be measurable. I need to be able to see that the neural pathways are breaking and that eye movement, just like with EMDR, signifies the breakdown of a neural pathway. We know we got it then.
wow. Yeah, that's really interesting and fascinating.
Everything's
Um
about the branding.
Yeah. I'm like, "Tell me about it." No, I said 'cause, I've had some recent things, I love the title of my podcast as far as sex, drugs, and soul, but I've had some, like, run-ins with being, shadow banned or something around
Uh-huh.
the language of certain things and,
Yeah, they
like
think it's like an OnlyFans account. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, "Come on." I'm like, "It's really
It's
like,
such a great
uplifting."
name, but people
Yes.
don't really look beyond the name because it's
Mhm.
scary, and I think that's one of the things that actually is a part of that collective unconscious or the shadow that we all
Mhm.
share, is we
Mm.
like to sort things and put them into boxes. It's the way that our brains work. Even from, like, younger than 2 years old, we tend to start sorting things into genders.
Mm.
And it's arbitrary. There's no rhyme or reason to why we do it. We're taught these things. Like, for instance, the color blue up until the 1950s was a girl's color, not a boy's color.
Oh,
Mhm.
interesting.
Because the Virgin Mary was blue. Everything associated with that color was seen as feminine and really leaned in that direction. And red was considered a masculine color, and pink, as an extension, was a masculine color. Little boys, when they were born, were put in pink until the 1950s. Little girls were put in blue. And then something shifted culturally, societally. We switched it. You even see it with Disney princesses. Snow
Mm.
White is wearing blue, Cinderella's wearing blue.
Wow.
Sleeping Beauty came out at the time that blue and pink were swapping, and hence the
Wow.
fight about the dress, blue or pink.
Whoa, I have full
Yeah.
body truth bumps right now.
Isn't
Just
that unbelievable? It's
yeah.
all a construct. It's all how
Mhm.
we put it. So when we learn something's supposed to be some way, the memory is created, it sits within the body. The
Mhm.
brain now has this readily active box sorting system of how to put things. I hear the word sex or I hear the word shadow. That goes in the icky box. I don't want to touch those.
Yeah, the taboo or the ones
Mhm.
like that, well, I have to be maintain like the good girl, then I won't get into heaven. Oh, I'm saying that because of like religious background and
Yeah, and that
upbringing.
is the big thing is that,
Yep.
that Virgin Mary complex, the Madonna whore.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. It's like you can only be one or the other.
Exactly, and yet in other cultures and other societies, the gray area not only exists, but it flourishes, so that
Yes.
same sorting doesn't happen.
There's a lot more permission in it too, actually. I feel like you're, like, tapping into my mind here because one of my next question was, like, about easing the concept of duality and, like, how we
Yeah.
put the right and or boxes in right and wrong or, good and bad or that sort of thing. So,
Yes.
what do you wanna
We're
expand?
leaning right into it, right? I
Mhm,
it's just the way that our brains work, but they don't have to. It's
mhm,
like our shortcut system. Like on a computer, we want to create shortcuts. So our brain is creating shortcuts. We have all these unconscious memories. They create those boxes in the sorting system where we put things into. And that's where duality comes from. It's just our way of simplifying.
mm.
But I always loved as a therapist challenging people on creating more gray space and pulling things out of those boxes. So if somebody has a knee-jerk reaction to something, oh, I'm going to spend time in there. I want to know why. I want to pick it apart. I want to go through it with them and understand it. Because how many things do you think we could accomplish if we stopped just automatically having this knee-jerk reaction to go somewhere?
For sure. I mean, there's been times in my life now it's like I've had a few reps over the years where I know to like analyze and look at it with a little bit more curiosity when I do have a knee-jerk reaction. It's like, okay, what's this trying to tell me?
What's
What is
underneath
it?
this?
Yeah. I'm like, and then asking myself questions and getting curious. Um, do you think that like a lot of the anxiety or depression that's seen today, I was just watching a documentary, I think by Gabor Mate about the rise of, youth, whether anxiousness or suicide rates or depression, is related to like those unconscious memories or the connection and memory, or like, what do you see in that capacity?
I definitely see that. I think there's more research that needs to be done because there still is that part of me that I want the science, I want the facts, and I
Yeah.
want the data. But I can say that I've seen with people, whether it's through traditional therapy or through shadow work, that when we do deal with the unconscious, the stuff that we're hiding, the levels of anxiety lessen. We end up feeling a lot better every single day. And our ability to handle hard moments gets a lot better. So our resilience increases. I do think they're directly connected, but that is something that we're still working on studying because when we think about scientific research around the brain, it's all brand new. I had a neuroscience professor who on day one of class was like, everything you learned today is already outdated and we know nothing. Welcome to class. And it was so true. And I'm dating myself a little bit. I graduated college a while ago, but
Me too, sister.
the brain is still a new frontier. We don't know anything as of yet. And I think things like shadow work, as we like deepen our understanding to them, or even things like quantum physics, which we know are based in science, but a lot of it is leaps of faith. We're going to have more data on it the next 15 to 20 years to be able to back everything up and make it so that it can be more mainstream because people won't put it into that box of like, oh no,
Woo woo.
woo woo, which I hate. I hate the phrase woo
Me
woo
too.
because it's so,
'Cause
it's, yeah,
I'm like,
don't,
it's not.
it's not. I think everything in this realm of like the woo-woo stuff that we talk about is just science that we haven't fully figured out the explanation for yet. We just need more data.
Mhm. Yeah,
We're
no, I
working
love
on it.
that's why I love like the information you're providing, and then Dr. Joe Dispenza's information, because I feel like it does provide the science before like the spiritual concepts or the mysticism, to couple it. And I love like the integration between the two because I feel like it helps like with the skepticism of
My publishing house would love that you're saying this because when we were working on shadow work and everything's getting pitched to all these like higher ups, the big publishing companies, they're like, imagine if Joe Dispenza and Gabby Bernstein had a baby and her name is Danielle Massey. This is her.
it. That's so true.
That was the pitch.
I love it.
It's like science meets the spiritual and making it
Yes,
happen in a way that feels friendly and easy because it doesn't have to
exactly.
be so hard.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say your book is so easy to digest.
Thank you.
And like, so I've read, some where I'm like, oh, okay. It's some of it, some books can be a little bit harder to get into or
Yes,
implement or, integrate or use the practices. And yours is just very, very like easy to digest.
I
I
appreciate
definitely
that.
highly
Thank you.
recommend. Um, and then you touch on a lot of different forms of meditation. I've seen it on your Instagram. I've seen it on, in your book. I love to explore some different options of meditation for people.
Yes.
And then I have a particular question around writing as meditation.
Yeah. I think we have this idea in our minds of what meditation is supposed to be. This is funny. I just the other day, my kids, I'm like trying to show them some movies from my childhood. So we're going through Little Rascals and It Takes
Oh,
Two with the Olsen twins, and we're just
yes.
like going through all of them. And Ace Ventura came up recently, especially because my son is such a goofball. And in one of his movies, I forget which one, in the Ace Ventura movie, he like spends time with Buddhist monks and he's meditating in the very beginning. There's all these animals around him. He's got his fingers in that position. He's doing om. And my kids are like, what the? that?" Because they don't see that. And I'm like, "He's meditating." They're like, "Mom, you don't meditate like that." And I thought that was so cool to see because I think most of us who are, 25 plus
Mhm.
think of meditation as sitting crisscross applesauce on a meditation pillow, perfect silence, eyes closed, fingers in the correct mudra, trying to focus on your third eye and thinking about your grocery list in your head and trying to bat it away. And that's not the way that it needs to be. That's not even close to what it is. When we're thinking about true meditation, all that it is accessing theta brainwave state.
Mm,
And you can do that all the time. You're in theta brainwave state multiple times throughout your day. When you're sitting around and you're starting to daydream and you have to like shake yourself back to reality, you were in theta. You were meditating.
mm,
When you're trying to fall asleep at night and you're drifting off and you could get up if you wanted to, but you're like trying to fight yourself to go to sleep and you're getting more restful, you feel your body relaxing, you're in theta.
mm,
You're on a walk, walking your dog through, and you're looking at the trees and the flowers and you're super relaxed, you're in theta.
mm,
And that's where we want to get.
mm,
So you
mhm,
can do that however you want. There is no right or wrong way to do that as long as you get to that destination. So I like sharing on social media some ways that people have done it before that make it really easy. Things like
mhm,
fire scrying, things like walking meditations, which Dr. Joe Dispenza loves talking about as well. You just need to get to that space and you did it. And it doesn't have to be no thoughts. It just
mm,
has to be the ability for yourself to be in that rest and digest state. Or,
mm.
as I've heard people say before, just being where your feet are.
Oh, I love that expression. Like, I say it, I'm like, "Being where my boots are."
Yeah,
Like,
just be
and then
here, just be
yeah,
present.
and that gives me so much permission too, because sometimes, I am like, "Okay, I love my meditations, but I have a new puppy." And
And
so
that's not easy.
no, I didn't get the memo. No, and I'm paying for my raising. So, but like I've been, working on just like leaving the phone at home and like going on the walk with him, and so I love that as like a meditation with him too.
Yes.
And then, it just gives like, more freedom and options, and it's also to me like a twofer. I'm a fan of twofers where I'm like
Oh,
I can
I
get
love
some
a twofer.
exercise. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Get some exercise, some nature, some meditation, some theta, that's great.
It gets all the
Um,
things accomplished. Just check them off.
yeah. Yeah. Is that like my little dopamine? You know, and so I'm just curious because when I was writing my book, I noticed, I kind of tend to think that writing is a form of meditation as
It
well, like
is.
observing our thoughts. And I would notice sometimes when I was writing that the tense would change to we, and I'm like, okay, that necessarily didn't feel like it was coming from me per se, or like maybe greater consciousness or higher self. And then, but there was also so many elements of dots connecting, and I'm like, oh my god, I had an abandonment one from my dad whenever they got divorced, and, and just like so many aha moments through the memoir writing journey. So I was like, could there be a potential connection between memoir writing or reflective writing and journaling,
Oh, absolutely.
to shadow work?
Yeah, as long as you're getting into that theta state, and it sounds like you definitely are,
Okay.
then you're getting into that space. When people are brand new to it, because memoir writing can feel overwhelming. To sit
Mhm.
down and have to write about yourself is very vulnerable. It's
Mhm.
intimate.
Mhm.
And we can do it, but sometimes a couple of little nudges in the right direction can help. So,
Mhm.
what I recommend for people, and I call it shadow work journaling, but really it's just like journaling inwards and trying to go deeper, is to ask yourself any generic question, like,
Mhm.
what's on my heart today?
Mhm.
Just close your eyes and breathe for a couple seconds and see what pops up. Like, what's just going to
Mhm.
bubble up from under the surface? But then keep going. And whatever your answer is, like, let's say, like, I feel like I'm stuck.
Mhm.
What's the stuck feeling about? Close your eyes, breathe, whatever comes up. And then
Mhm.
you just keep going.
Mhm.
And really, when we think about it, that's all that therapy is. I talk to other therapists about this all the time. All that a therapist is, besides like years of training. So I do not want to downplay the fact that we have to go to school for a long time. We're trained in very specific things. But really, it's just getting very good at lines of questioning. And they're not things that we think about ahead of time. It's not like a therapist is coming in with a bunch of notes about here's where we're going today.
Mhm.
Therapists are highly intuitive. I'm hearing you. and I'm thinking and I'm letting my heart open up. And it's like, what feels like it needs to be asked?
Mm.
And that's all that you're doing with memoir writing, or someone else is doing with their own shadow work journaling if they're doing it on their own. It's just
Mm.
opening your heart up, letting yourself get into that really nice, juicy theta brainwave state, and letting the questions take you wherever it is that your soul needs you to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love like the incorporation of like the breathing in between and the pausing too.
It helps keep us where our boots are.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like even like as the the journaling too, sometimes I can just like free write or whatever, but like the pause, okay, take a deep breath and then continue or like in between the questions. Like I love that like little add-on or
Yeah.
combo.
Of
Um,
course. And for anybody that is like, I wouldn't even know where to start or what to ask, that's where
mhm,
shadow work journaling is really great because the questions are pointed. And you
mhm,
could look up questions on the internet. You
mhm.
could find a shadow work journal. I have one called the Shadow Seekers Journal online. I have questions inside the book. And I have an Oracle deck coming out that has, I know,
Oh,
I can
cool.
show
Do you have a
you.
oh my
I'm dying. This is
when
the
is
first time I'm talking about this on a podcast. I'm so excited.
sweet. No, I mean, like, I love Oracle decks, and that
Me
looks bomb. When does it come
too.
out?
August 5th. It's available for pre-order now, and I
Okay,
think
okay.
it's on sale.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll pre-order it. I'm like, there's that patience lesson again now.
Right? No patience with this because this is the good stuff. But besides, like, the normal guidebook that comes with every Oracle deck, there's also a workbook. So
Okay, cool.
every single prompt in here also has a set of, like, either shadow work journaling questions that you can do or exercises to help you get there on your own so
Mm,
that you can start doing this stuff in a way that feels like it's guided and not like you're on your own, because that can be
yeah.
scary.
Oh, for sure. Like I know like writing in and of itself can feel lonely or isolating. And then if
Oh,
you're going
yeah.
into a new realm, and support for me, I've noticed I'm like, okay, slower is better for my nervous system in a
Yeah.
plethora of different ways, whether it's dating, whether it's um talking to people. It just yeah, it's been a newfound realization that
And how beautiful that you know that about yourself because not everybody is that way. And for the people who are, sometimes their life doesn't give them the space for that. Like they have family members who won't really give them the time to slow
Mhm,
down or their job or
mhm,
whatever else. And that
mhm,
can be difficult.
mhm, mm. It's been a journey. But I've always been curious and inquisitive and like you, and I've been toying with the idea. I'm like, do I go back to school? Like, I minored in psychology and to continue on, but I do feel like I don't know if I want to stay within the box or parameters or like legalities that therapists have to stay between versus like a coach or
That's why
guide.
I left.
Yeah.
I'm I'm glad I did it because I do
Yeah.
have that backing. I
Yes.
do have all the research, the experience, and the ability to do things safely, which
Mhm.
unfortunately in the coaching world, even if you were to go and get like a coaching certification, there's just nothing that's going to match what you would get in a therapy degree.